Big names have hit the portal, and we are going to discuss it here. I am Colin Bashingle, your host here on Bash's CFB show, Bash's College Football Show. You can see that name up there. You can also see me on TikTok. I reacted to all of my stuff on TikTok because of how busy my weekend ended up being last weekend. So I just wanted to make it clear that you can find me here if you have trouble finding me when it comes to these videos, or if these videos aren't getting made. I am making TikTok content when I need to make content, at least in replacement for this, but then also other content that's going to be able to more interact with you guys. So I would highly recommend you guys getting in and joining or following at TikTok. And yeah, I totally butchered that, but that's my little advertisement. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about the transfer real quick. You see these pennants in the background. We are going to get the group of five Liberty. I will have by hopefully Christmas time. I got told to wait on buying pennants in case somebody got me them for Christmas. But like Florida State, also one that I do not have. Don't know how I don't have Florida State, but that is one that we're also going to add back there. And then a handful of others. Missouri, I think I have also needing to be on the way, which is, again, surprising. I thought I had Missouri. And then go Army beat Navy. I see Army over here. You guys don't. Not going to worry about moving the camera. But let's just get into this transfer talk. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the bigger transfers, some of the teams that may be hurt by the portal, and some teams that might not be that hurt by the portal. All right. We're going to start with talking about some of the top players that are in the portal right now. So Walter Nolen is the number one overall player in 247 Sports Transfer rankings, and I happen to agree with this. Walter Nolen is a fantastic defensive lineman, a five-star out of high school. He is a really, really good player. Now, number 2 and 3, I don't really get. Aiden Childs, backup quarterback at Oregon State, how he's above DJ Uiagalelei makes no sense to me, and then Dante Moore. Now, Aiden Childs he's projected to go to Michigan State and follow Jonathan Smith. I'll be interested to see what happens. But some of the other big names to watch out for, I do want to talk about Cameron Ward because a lot of people do think he's going to Ohio State. I do not share that opinion. I think a lot of people are gravitating towards that opinion, thinking Ohio State needs a transfer quarterback, when I don't really know if they necessarily need one, but I think they're willing to maybe flirt with it a little bit. And I think that's what's going on right there. Cameron Ward, I don't know where he's going to end up. He's talking about staying out west. If you really notice, all the schools that they are talking about outside of Ohio State, they're all West Coast teams. And it seems like he's wanting to stay out there, whether it's Washington, Oregon, or anywhere out there. That's where Cameron Ward is thinking about going. And that's where I think he will end up. I think he's going to stay out west. Another guy I want to bring up is Princely Umanmielen. He's a very good player out of Florida. He's an edge rusher. He made a pretty big impact for the Gators, and I think he can make a huge impact wherever he ends up. If Ohio State does lose their guys, for example, I feel like a guy like that could definitely help lose like Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau. How about Juice Wells, a guy to talk about first? Chase, this is a late addition to the portal, or at least one that I didn't notice until earlier today. Chase Bizantis is a very good offensive tackle, was a freshman All-SEC or All-American tackle, and I think that he's going to do great things. Transfer from A&M. They're just absolutely getting gutted, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Juice Wells from South Carolina, just continuing on to what started last year with guys like Jaheim Bell leaving for Florida State, and then other guys, a lot of guys left for South Carolina last year. That's just the bottom line. So they're continuing to get gutted. A couple of key defensive players, by the way, for the Clemson Tigers entering the portal. So early on, we saw Bo Collins was entering the portal, which was not very surprising. But Toriano Pride, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, Andrew Mukuba, and also David Ojegbe is all in the portal, and I think they're all really good players and good depth pieces or good future pieces, but certainly Mukuba, why did I screw up that name? Mukuba, he's a very good player. He was a starter for them this past year, a starter in the secondary. He's a very good player to watch out for in the portal. He's ranked number 10 in the portal. Talking about Texas A&M a little bit more, LT Overton, he's a defensive lineman. His brother is also in the portal too. Trey Moore, defensive lineman, edge rusher for UTSA, is in the portal, projected to go to Texas, somebody to watch for there. Some of the other names that you guys might know. You have Trevor Etienne in the portal. No idea where he's going to go. Will Howard, Riley Leonard is in the portal. Deion Burks, Julian Fleming from Ohio State. We'll talk about Ohio State here in a little bit. Tobias Merriweather, the wide receiver out of Notre Dame, 100% crystal balled to Washington. Been that way for a while. He's a Washington kid. Joey Slackman, by the way, one guy to watch out for too with Penn, but not too many people know too much about him. Raleek Brown from USC is in the portal. You also got Brock Vandagriff, who transferred over to Kentucky already, or at least committed his transfer. A couple more Texas A&M players. Jake Johnson, the brother of Max Johnson, who committed to North Carolina. We'll see if Jake ends up following or if he gets that ability. Jake was actually a pretty good tight end for A&M. We'll see if he ends up going somewhere else. And Fadil Diggs as well for Texas A&M. Daquan Finn, the Toledo quarterback, also Dylan Gabriel, Kyle McCord. A guy I'm watching for is Upton Stout, a defensive back, 5'9", defensive back who just has absolute dog in him from Western Kentucky. Rocket Sanders, Ja'Cory Brooks, who made some pretty big plays for the Alabama Crimson Tide in his time there. Chris Brazzell, the best wide receiver in the American Athletic Conference, if you ask me, just was kind of hindered by a system there. Will Rogers, 100% projected to go to Washington. We'll see if it ends up being that way. Tyler Van Dyke is in the portal. Grayson McCall, wide receiver. Josh Kelly out of Washington State. DJ Uiagalelei. This portal is just absolutely loaded. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to talk about sleepers. Sleepers in the portal that a whole lot of people aren't talking about, that's outside of the top 50 when it comes to the transfer portal rankings. And if this is no specific order, but the first guy I want to bring up is Marcus Carroll. The running back from Georgia State was tremendous. He was able to get a lot of production in a lot of his games and specifically was able to get a lot of touchdowns. This is a guy that's going to be a great add for a Power 5 team. Very, very valuable. Definitely going to be a good depth piece. He's a sleeper guy that I want to watch out for sure. Now, another guy, he's already committed. He's a wide receiver from the G5 level, 1,100 yards with subpar quarterback play, including early on, by the way. It was very bad. Chris Mitchell is a guy to watch out for. He's going to Notre Dame, already committed there. He might be joining a wide receiver room that is very thin right now, but they are definitely hitting the portal hard. A lot of talk about Julian Fleming from Ohio State going out there. That's a guy to watch out for. Also from the group of 5, you have Cullen Lacey. No idea where he's going to end up, but Cullen Lacey might be better than Chris Mitchell at the end of the day. The South Alabama wide receiver who absolutely shines. Another big-time get that he's already committed, Leon Lowry. He's a very good player out of Syracuse, joining that Luke Fickell defense and that system out there at Wisconsin. Definitely a huge get because, you know, you're going to lose a little bit. I'm assuming Injung Meta is going to be gone, and that's going to be a big deal for Wisconsin. So you get somebody at linebacker who's very athletic and a very solid player. That is somebody to watch for. And the fifth one that I want to talk about as a sleeper that is leaving. This one is maybe less I think this is less impactful than I was hoping it would be because it looks like he's going to follow his coach to the FBS level. But the quarterback from Holy Cross, Matthew Sluka, he's absolutely insane. He's the FCS version of Tim Tebow. Now, he's a great running quarterback. He's not the best passer in the world by no means, but he can be pretty efficient through the air, especially with better athletes. It looks like he's probably going to go to James Madison and follow his coach, but who knows? He's not crystal balled anywhere. So those are the 5 sleepers early on here. You have a handful of other guys that you could talk about, like Ayo Adei, a guy from North Texas. You got a 1-2 punch really from North Texas that both hit the portal that I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on. Also a linebacker from Princeton named Ozzie Nicholas. But we could go on and on and on about how many quality players are in the portal. What we really need to talk about is the guys who decided to commit to these portal destinations, because this is really the big news that we have to talk about. But before we do, I do want to make sure I get back to this point. Texas A&M is getting completely gutted in the portal. They have a lot of talent, and they have a culture that when you have a change at the head coaching position and have a complete staff turnover, this is the type of stuff that could happen. Now, Mike Elko was just there a couple of years ago. He'd only been at Duke for 2 years and was a tremendous success, instant hit at Duke immediately. But he's not able to retain a lot of this talent. Now, we are watching this. At this point, Evan Stewart still hasn't hit the portal. Connor Wegman has not hit the portal. This is not a complete disaster for the Texas A&M Aggies, at least yet. Now, they need to revamp that defense anyway, and I think there's no other better guy to do it than Mike Elko. They're going to be very active in the portal, but early on, they've had a lot of their roster gutted. Ohio State has not. Let me be very clear with this. If you want to talk about what Ohio State has in the portal, we are going to just immediately start thinking about, Kyle McCord and Julian Fleming in the starters. So before I get to Julian Fleming and Kyle McCord, let's talk about these other guys in the portal. Joe Royer really only hit the field when Cade Stover was hurt last year. He dealt with a lot. I wish all of these guys well, by the way. All of these guys leaving makes a whole lot of sense. Chip Trayanum started this year. This was alarming, right? No, I mean, we don't know if TreVeyon Henderson's leaving now. If he leaves, Ohio State has to hit the portal. But they needed an upgrade at the running back position that's beyond Chip Trayanum, and that upgrade is probably another offseason of development for Dallin Hayden. We'll see what James Peoples can do. I don't think that they're going to be necessarily relying on freshman running backs, and I hope they're not. Because, I mean, just a little bit of a hint, they're expecting a flip to Miami here soon out of that running back room, but it's fine. They're going to have Sam Williams-Dixon for sure. They're going to have James Peoples for sure. These are two kids that are definitely in. So Chip Trayanum leaving is not a huge concern to me. Now, if TreVeyon Henderson doesn't come back for depth purposes, I do think they have to hit the portal. Jair Brown, cornerback. He started, I think, 1 game in 2022. 0 in 2023. He got surpassed by Jermaine Matthews and Cal Simpson Hunt. I don't know what to tell you. Like, he got surpassed. Amari Abor was not going to touch the field next year. And again, we don't know the future of Jack Sawyer and JTT. He probably has a better idea than us, but he's behind Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry, Mitchell Melton, and anybody else who's playing edge. I've heard rumors that Arvell Reese is playing defensive end and is above Amari Abor. So not a huge loss there. Reed Carrico, linebacker. The only thing that concerns me about that is projecting forward. I don't know if Ohio State's going to have a ton of depth at linebacker, but Reed Carrico was never supposed to be that depth piece anyway. Reed Carrico, I wish him well. He's probably more of a G5 player, and so is Jacob James, who's really bounced around the offensive line. He ended up not even being the backup after getting injured in the spring ball when he was trying to compete for that starting job with a redshirt freshman in Carson Hinsman, who's probably still got 2 more years of football. If Jacob James wants to play, he's got to leave. Evan Pryor. This really is the one that tells me that TreVeyon Henderson is staying another year, because Evan Pryor came in with TreVeyon Henderson. They were 2 of the top. And unfortunately for Evan, he completely blew out his knee. There was a lot of talks before he did towards the end of the offseason last season in 2022 about him kind of having a role similar to Curtis Samuel. I mean, that's what we're going with. I mean, right here, Curtis Samuel, whichever shoulder that is. Cameron Martinez, he started a lot of games in 2022, did not start at all in 2023. He was a liability in coverage in 21 and 22, and he is open to playing both sides of the ball. This was a kid who played quarterback in high school. Clearly, safety isn't necessarily the spot for him, and he's transferring, being open to playing anywhere. Kai Stokes. Again, this is sad to see, because he was a star of the spring game a couple years ago, his freshman year. But Sonny Styles has passed him. Malik Hartford has passed him. He wants to see the field. That's why he's transferring. That's the biggest. Jair Brown, Kai Stokes are definitely the ones I'm saddest to see leave, but that's why he's transferring. Ryan Turner, also a corner. He was never really a depth piece at all. Parker Lewis, the kicker. He's a backup kicker to Jaden Felding. And Vic Cutler. He was a transfer from UL Monroe. We brought him in for depth. He realized that he's not going to hit the field at Ohio State. He thinks maybe he needs to split the difference between UL Monroe and Ohio State. That's just the truth. Now we talk about Kyle McCord and Julian Fleming. Let's start with Kyle McCord. His daddy was gung-ho on talking to Ryan Day about getting the starting job guaranteed to him, and Ryan Day was refusing to guarantee the spot. That's it. And they wanted to use his final year of eligibility somewhere else. Okay, I'm okay with that. If you don't want to compete for the job, I don't want you as my Ohio State quarterback. Again, you see what I'm wearing. I'm a big Ohio State fan. And if I'm putting on my fan hat here, I'm putting on my fan glasses, which are still thick. At the end of the day, we don't want a quarterback that doesn't want to fight tooth and nail to be the quarterback of Ohio State. It's an honor. It's a blessing. And all of the ones before you have treated it like such. Whether it has been a lesser talent like a JT Barrett or even a Cardale Jones, or if it was a superior talented player like Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, CJ Stroud, they've all appreciated the glory and they've all appreciated the opportunity of being the quarterback at Ohio State. And I'm not saying Kyle McCord didn't appreciate that, but he doesn't appreciate it enough to go and defend his position. Because for all of you saying, well, he's got 1 year of eligibility, what happens if he loses? If he loses, coming out first game next year, we see another quarterback and it's not Kyle McCord. McCord can redshirt and delay that a year. I know that's a lot to ask for, but that's the development process that a guy like Joe Burrow went through before transferring to get through the field. But Joe competed. Joe came out, and the biggest hindrance to him was a hand injury and wrist surgery. This isn't a cat that's going over to another school and making Ohio State eat their words for it. We'll see. I mean, and a lot of talk about Nebraska. I doubt he goes to Nebraska because I really don't think he wants a piece of Ohio State in the regular season next year. I really don't. I think he'd go to Rutgers because they don't play Ohio State in the regular season. Or he'd go to Syracuse, or he'd go to NC State. Those are my three favorites. If he goes to Nebraska, hey, we'll see you in October next year. That's all I'm going to say. Now, Julian Fleming, there's a lot less vitriol to this. He has had a little bit early on. It was injury plagued, but also he was just a disappointment as far as a recruit goes. And the standard was set too high. He was top 5 in every platform. He was number 1 overall when it comes to ESPN. He was the number 1 wide receiver across the board. He dominated lesser competition in Pennsylvania. He needs to go somewhere else because the bottom line is this. The staff is ready to move on. The wide receiver room is loaded, and Julian told you guys that. And I don't know why people think that, assuming Marvin Harrison Jr. leaves, I'm hearing the noise, going to ignore the noise until there's something substantial there. Let's say, hypothetically, Emeka Egbuka comes back. We still got a couple of guys in Keon Graves and Kojo Antwi who are still there. I don't really expect either guy to hit the field. If either of them do, I think it'd be Keon Graves, but you never know how development could work, especially from year 2 to year 3. Jaden Ballard's got that deep speed. He's still not in the portal. But then you got these 4 freshmen that I'm going to talk about that are probably inching on Julian Fleming. Carnell Tate, which definitely was. I mean, his playing time shows for it. Don't know why he didn't play against Michigan, but that's a discussion for another time. Brandon Ennis, Bryson Rogers, and Noah Rogers. And then you got Jeremiah Smith also lurking ahead, who's just an absolute freak show, who I think, I don't ever really project this, but I think as a true freshman, he's going to play immediately. He's that much of a freak show. And you got Mylan Graham as well in that class. So I don't love seeing Julian go, but it was time to go. I thought it was time to go last year, to be honest with you. After all the stuff I had heard about Carnell Tate in the spring, I thought in the spring that it's probably time for Julian to leave. And credit to him, he stuck it out. He was, for the most part, wide receiver 3, but I really don't think he'd be wide receiver 3 next year if Egbuka comes back, and certainly if Marvin Harrison Jr. comes back, which, again, I'm not buying into, but hypothetically, if he did, Julian wouldn't really sniff the field, and he's got one more year, period. You know, his excuse, he got redshirted. He might have the COVID year. I don't know. He might have the ability to redshirt again, but the bottom line is this. It is best for him to leave. All right, we're going to talk about all the transfer commitments, what I think is really the biggest transfer commitments, and then we are going to wrap this little transfer portal thing up and just call it a day. So let's just run through these commitments here. So first off, the most recent one that I am seeing as far as guys who have hit the portal and then committed, Brandon Fontenette. He committed from TCU to Vanderbilt. Just an interesting piece at safety there. Brock Vandagriff, I already talked about. Going to Kentucky there. Then you go down a little bit. Toriano Pride commits to Missouri. A big get for a quarterback there. A talented kid coming out of high school right there. So a huge get for Missouri. How about Joey Tananoa? Okay, I said that right. Or Tanona. I'm going to say Tanona. He's committed to Purdue. He's staying in state from Notre Dame, an offensive tackle. He didn't really play much at Notre Dame, but he's looking to make a little bit of a splash. Jordan Clark comes in from Arizona State, going to Notre Dame and also going to Notre Dame. Previously mentioned FIU transfer Chris Mitchell. Teddy Buchanan is an interesting player, a really good linebacker out of UC Davis. And he's going to play at Cal for the rest of his eligibility, I'm assuming, and he's a really good player. That's all I'm going to say. I watched a little bit of tape on him. I'm like, who is this kid from UC Davis that's like top 25? He's a really good player, a great get for strangely an interesting program out there that is in a bowl game, but kind of quietly. Chris Tyree transferring from Notre Dame to Virginia, and that's where you can, again, see the wide receiver room kind of getting depleted for Notre Dame. Brendan Sorsby, who played a lot of quarterback early on for Indiana. He's transferring to Cincinnati. Nana Osafo-Mensah is transferring from Notre Dame to TCU to see a little bit of more playing time, as depth on the defensive line was pretty deep there. Spencer Brown, a really good offensive tackle, transfer from Michigan State to Oklahoma. This is an interesting get. I don't necessarily think that this is an immediate, for sure, plug and play for Oklahoma, but this is a really good get for them. Kamari Morales goes to Boston College from North Carolina. They tied in there. Big threat. Max Johnson, the quarterback from Texas A&M, commits to North Carolina. A big get from Minnesota that caused Ethan Kaliak-Manis to hit the portal. Max Brosmer for Minnesota is added from New Hampshire. Keyshawn Blackstock also committed from Michigan State to Arkansas, losing another offensive lineman. Tyler Shuck, a big get out of Texas Tech for Louisville in Jeff Brom's system. Finally, just for fun, Spencer Petras commits to Utah State out of Iowa. I didn't even know he still had eligibility left. I'm just putting that out there. But that's your little transfer portal update. It was a little bit of a clunky show, I'm not going to lie. I've been doing a lot of research on this stuff, and it's a little clunky, partly because I don't have my own transfer portal rankings that I wanted to put out yet, because I want to see if there's going to be more movement in the portal. And I had made rankings. I had written it down on notebook position by position, but I don't want to go through that until we know for sure who's all going to be in the portal. So with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Check out TikTok. TikTok, put more up. We'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good day. God